हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य अद्य 27. पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे विधेयस्थाननिर्णयः इति विषयम् अधिकृत्य सूत्राणि पठामः। So in the previous class we studied about the types of uddeshas, purvanimitta, paranimitta, sthani. Now the complementary part about the vidheyas, five types of vidheyas, the adesha, agama, dvitva, lopa and pratyaya. एतेषां विधानं कुत्र भवति इत्यस्मिन् विषये विद्यमानानि सूत्राणि अद्य अस्माभिः द्रक्ष्यन्ते। शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वरऋषिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य द्वे प्रयोजने अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य चतुश्शतस्य सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। There are a lot of sutras that we want to study in today's class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So without any waste of time, let's get started. There were some questions on the previous class that people have sent me offline. I'll address them towards the end of today's class. So प्रारभामहे। यथा अस्माभिः पूर्वमेव दृष्टमस्ति विधिसूत्रेषु उद्देश्यं तथा विधेयम् इति द्वौ मुख्यौ अंशौ स्तः। तत्र विधेयस्य विषये पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे अस्माभिः चिन्तनं कृतं। विधेयं पंचमी विभक्त्या, उद्देश्यं पंचमी विभक्त्या, षष्ठी विभक्त्या, सप्तमी विभक्त्या च निर्देष्टुं शक्यम् इति उद्देश्यस्य विषये पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे अस्माभिः चिन्तनं कृतम्। इदानीम् अद्य अग्रे सरामः। विधेयस्य विषये किञ्चित् चिन्तनम् अद्य करिष्यते। So Videya is of 5 types. We have seen this in multiple classes again and again. Adesha, Agama, Lopa, Dvitva and Pratyaya. We are going to focus on each of these one by one in today's class, and we will talk about where is this particular Videya presented or appears in the entire context of the given sthani or agami. So prarabhamahe, lot of new information is there, so please pay attention. Let's start with the most important one, the adeshaha. This is the slide that is copied from one of the previous classes. So yaha shabdaha prakrutehe no chet pratyayasya kasyachana amshasya nishkasanam krutva तस्य स्थाने स्वस्य स्थापनां करोति सः आदेशः इति नाम्ना ज्ञायते. सो देव प्लस टा इत्यत्र टा इत्यस्य स्थाने इन इति आदेशः भवति. अस इति धातोः स्थाने भू इति आदेशः भवति. मरुत् प्लस अण इत्यत्र म इत्यस्माद् अनन्तरं विद्यमानः यः आकारः तस्य स्थाने मकार अनन्तरं विद्यमानः अकारः तस्य स्थाने आकारः आदेशरूपेण विधीयते. We have also seen the Vyakhya Sthani Arthabhidhana Samarthaha Shabdaha Adeshaha. इत्युक्ते आदेशः सः शब्दः अस्ति यः स्थानिनः अर्थस्य निर्देशं कर्तुं शक्नोति अर्हति and so on. We have seen the sthanivat bhava as it appears to the adesha. Adeshah sthanivat karyam karoti. So ta is a pratyaya, therefore ina is a pratyaya. Asa is a dhatu, therefore bhu is a dhatu, and so on. And we have also seen sthanini vidyamanaha itta gunadharmaha adeshe atidishyante. Suktva is a kitta pratyaya. So lyapa, even though you do not see a visible kakara over there, it is still a kita pratyaya. And finally, shatruvad adeshaha. All of us know what it means. So this is what we already know. Now let's move on to the new material. Adeshaha chatushprakarakaha santi. There are 4 types of adeshas that are defined in Ashtadhyayi. Any random adesha that you pick up from any sutra, it will belong to exactly one of these 4 types. And these types are created based on where the adesha comes and sits. Given a sthani, all that we are saying is adesha comes and sits in place of sthani, but is it actually placing in but is it actually kicking off the entire sthani and getting placed in that place? Or is it only kicking out a small portion of the sthani and coming and sitting in that place? Based on that, adeshas are classified into 4 groups. Adeshaha chatushprakarakaha, sarvadeshaha, adyadeshaha, antyadeshaha, ekadeshaha. The names are almost self-explanatory. सर्वादेशः इत्युक्ते सः आदेशः यः सम्पूर्णं स्थानिनं निष्कास्य तस्य स्थाने विधीयते. So we have seen, for example, when you apply tumun pratyaya to the asa dhatu, there is a sutram aster bhuhu which converts asa to bhu. So asa is the sthani, bhu is the adesha. Entire asa is being replaced by bhu. Such an adesha is called sarvadesha. The second is Adyadesha. As the name indicates, Saha Adeshaha Yaha Sthadinaha Kevalam Prathama Varnam Nishkasya Tasya Sthane Vidhiyate. So even if the Adesha is given for the entire Sthani, actually when it comes, it only removes the first letter of the Sthani, does not alter anything else. So for example, there is a sutram Dvyantarapasargebhyaha Apa-ita. What does this sutra say? Dvi plus apa. Dvi iti shabdat apa iti shabdah. Apa means water. Apa iti shabdah yada vidhiyate tada apa iti shabdasya ikaradesha bhavati. Apa is converted to e. This is the sutram. But actually what happens is when you add dvi plus apa and then there is an a which is a pratyaya coming in the prakriya, only the first letter akara of apa is being replaced by ikara, the pa is not touched. So ayam adeshaha sthaninaha prathama varnam nishkasya tasya sthane vidhiyate ataha ayam adyadeshaha asti. The third adesha is complementary antyadeshaha. This is the adesha that will replace only the last letter of the sthani. Please understand, the adesha is not given to the first letter or the last letter. The adesha is given to the entire word. But actual replacement happens for the first letter in case of an adyadesha and similarly to the last letter in case of an antyadesha. So for example, there is a sutram called Tyadadi Namaha. Tyadadi Namaha sutra says that there is a Tyadadi Gana in the Gana Patha. The words of Tyadadi Gana, when there is a Vibhakti Pratyaya attached to it, these words undergo an Adesha of a. So akaradeshaha bhavati. So tada is a sample word of tyadadi gana. When there is a vibhakti pratyaya like su attached to tada, tada ityasya akaradeshaha bhavati. The entire word has an adesha called akaradesha. But what is actually happening? It is only the last letter, the dakara, is getting converted to akara. So this is an example of antyadesha. So we have sarvadesha, we have adyadesha, and we have antyadesha. The fourth category, which I have actually taught few classes ago, is called ekadesha. Ekadesha is a special type of adesha which simultaneously replaces two sthanis. So not just one sthani. The previous three are only acting on one sthani. On the contrary, ekadesha works on two sthanis. So saha adeshaha yaha prathama sthaninah antima varnam तथा च द्वितीय स्थानिनः आदिवर्णं निष्कास्य उभयोः स्थाने एकत्र रूपेण विधीयते. It is not the two copies of the adesha, one going to the last letter of the first sthani and other going to the first letter of the second sthani. It is a single copy which replaces the last letter of the first sthani and the first letter of the second sthani. This is called ekadesha. An example is adgunaha, the guna sandhi. In case of guna sandhi, a and e are combined to form a. Essentially what is happening is that a is the adesha which replaces the akara which is the last letter of deva, and the same a also replaces ikara which is the first letter of the para shabda isha. Therefore, Deva plus Isha becomes Devesha. In this way, the Adeshas are classified into 4 groups. Now let us focus on this Ekadesha for now. This Ekadesha is a very special type of Adesha because it is only restricted to a small set of sutras. If you go to Ashtadhyayi and go to Sutram 6184, Ekaha Purva Parayoho. So in this is an Adhikara Sutram, Ekaha Purva Parayoho. So in this Adhikara, starting from 6184, I think up to 61111, Ruta Utta. So till 61111, whatever region I showed just now, starting from 61 is there on the slide. Starting from 6184 up to 61111, whatever adeshas are told in this entire section, some 25, 27 sutras are there. Whatever adeshas are told in this particular section are all ekadeshas. And ekadeshas are only here. You don't see ekadeshas outside this section. So एकः पूर्वपरयोः इति अधिकारसूत्रमस्ति अस्य व्याप्तिः 61111 ऋत उत इति यावत् विद्यते अस्मिन् अधिकारे पाठिताः सर्वेऽपि आदेशाः एकादेशाः सन्ति. So you have for example the guna sandhi, vruddhi sandhi, adagama. In case of lang lakara there is adagama when the dhatu is ajadi. So for example iksha iti dhatuः अस्ति तस्य लंग लकारे रूपम आ प्लस ईक्षत. There is a vruddhi that is happening, which is again an ekadesh. A and e are together replaced by I. So that is atascha ekadesha is happening over there. Similarly, pra plus ejate, prejate. You all know these examples. You have studied sandhis. Muni plus dvitiya ekvachan of the word muni, ikara and akara are combined to form ikara. So two letters are combined together, a new adesha replaces the both letters. This is ekadesha. It is a very special type of adesha. It is present in the adhikara called ekaha purvaparayoho. The name of the adhikara actually gives out everything. Purvaparayoho sthane ekaha adeshaha vidhiyate. So ekaha purvaparayoho asmin adhikare vidyamanaha sarvepi adeshaha ekadeshaha santi. And outside these 26, 27 sutras, in the entire Ashtadhyayi, whatever adeshas are there are of the remaining 3 types: the Antyadesha, the Adyadesha, and the Sarvadesha. And what Panini Maharshi has done is that Panini Maharshi, whenever he gives these adeshas, he does not every time say that this is an Antyadesha, this is an Adyadesha, this is a Sarvadesha, and so on. But he uses the obvious technique of Alpaksharatvam. He encodes some it letters, or he encodes that particular information, whether it is a Adyadesha or Antyadesha or Sarvadesha. That information is encoded within the adesha in form of a certain structure. Sometimes it is it letters, sometimes it is the number of letters in the adesha, sometimes it is what nimitta, is there a purva nimitta, is there a para nimitta, and so on. So there is a heuristics that goes on, and there is a set of 4 sutras that actually teach us all this entire heuristics together. So that's the initial 4 sutras that we are going to study. So if you see 1152, 1153, 1154, 1155, the first 4 sutras of today's class, what we are going to study in these sutras: Alontyasya, Nichya, Adev Parasya, Anekalshit Sarvasya. What these sutras together say is that any given adesha, whether it is adyadesha, whether it is antyadesha, or whether it is sarvadesha. So these 4 sutras encode that logic which is actually or define that logic which is encoded in the actual adeshas. So you look at the adesha, see which of these code points or which of these heuristics does it match, and then you take a call whether that adesha is an antyadesha, adyadesha, or sarvadesha. So what we are going to do right now is understand these 4 sutras. First, I am going to explain the logic, the heuristics, the information that is coded over there, and then we will go to the actual sutras. Any questions so far, specifically only related to what is being taught? Okay, let us go ahead. So, Adesha Sthana Nirnayasya Sutrani. The very first sutram that we saw just now is this Alontyasya 1152. This Alontyasya sutram is the sutram that gives the rules for Adesha being an Antyadesha. So if the Alontyasya sutra matches, it means the Adesha will be Antyadesha. It gives out, you can say Antyasya is there in the sutram. It turns out that this is actually an Utsarga, which means that Panini Maharshi is saying that unless I tell you otherwise, every Adesha in Ashtadhyayi is Antyadesha. So this is the general statement. This is Utsarga. So if an Adesha is not Antyadesha, which means if an Adesha is either Adhyadesha or Sarvadesha, Panini Maharshi will give it as a specific sutram or give that with a specific coded information as an apavada. But if you do not see that kind of apavada, then the adesha is always antyadesha. So adesha being antyadesha is the default, is the utsarga, and then there is one apavada that will give you adhyadesha, and then there is other apavada that will give you sarvadesha. So the first apavada is adehe parasya 1154. So you see this 1152 is the utsarga. We are keeping this 1153 aside. 1154 adehe parasya gives the adhyadesha, which comes as an apavada to the autsargika sutram alontyasya. So what does the Adev Parasya Sutram say? It says that any Adesha which is being told specifically using a Purva Nimittam. So something tasmat parasya adeshaha bhavati. So you give a Purva Nimitta and you say tasmat parasya adeshaha bhavati. Anytime you see an adesha that is given using a Purva Nimitta, it is always Adyadesha. Let's actually go back to the previous slide and see. We have seen an example of Adyadesha. Dvyantarupasargebhyo apa Now look at the meaning of the sutram. Dvi shabdat parasya apashabdasya ikaradesha bhavati. Something parasya. The purva nimitta over there is dvi. Tasmat parasya apashabdasya ikaradesha bhavati. As soon as you have a purva nimitta and you say parasya, that is going to become the adyadesha. So coming back to our diagram, we have alontyasya, which is utsarga, adev parasya, which says parasya adesha. The sutra is very easy. You can see parasya adehe sthani adesha bhavati. So parasya iti rupena yatra adesha vidhiyate tatra saha adhyadesha asti. So that is the first apavada for alontyasya. The second apavada for alontyasya, now obviously that apavada is for sarvadesha. The sutram is anikal ship sarvasya. This sutram says that if the adesha is anikal, anekal means more than one letter. Aneka means two or more. This is a little digression, but I will mention this. What is the difference between Bahu and Aneka? Aneka is two or more. So, na eka is Aneka. So, two or more is Aneka. Bahu is three or more. So, you have ekavachana, dvivachana, and bahuvachana. So, Bahu is always three or more. Aneka is always two or more. So, here we are saying if the adesha is anikal, so two or more letters are coming together like a word with more than one letter. So two or more letters then it is anekal adesha. For example, asa getting converted to bhu. So bhu as an adesha is 2 letters. Here we are talking about the number of letters in the adesha, not sthani. Number of letters in the sthani doesn't matter. Sthani is going to go away. Its letters are irrelevant. Who is coming? The adesha is coming. That adesha, if it is anikala, which means if it has 2 or more letters, then it will be sarvadesha. So an anikal adesha comes as a sarvadesha. Automatically it follows that now you look at the adesha, you see how many letters are there. If there is one letter in the adesha, then there is a scope for antyadesha. I am not saying antyadesha will always happen. Adef parasya might still block it. But if there is one letter, then there is a scope for antyadesha. If there are 2 or more letters, then it is sarvadesha. So that is one possibility. The second possibility is that if that adesha has an itsamyaka shakara. So for example, there is an adesha called isha. There is another adesha called ausha. These are all valid adeshas. These adeshas have shakara getting an itsamya by halantyam. Now look at this. Isha, is this ekala or anekala? It is ekala. Single letter is there. The number of letters, counting of number of letters should not include its samyakas. So first you get rid of its samyakas, then you count the letters. So actually one letter is there. But this is a special adesha. It has its samyaka shakara. So such adeshas which have its samyaka shakara, they are also sarvadesha. You don't need to worry about the number of letters. As soon as it is a shit adesha, it is sarvadesha. Please understand, shit can be anything. Agamas, not agamas, but pratyas can be shit and dhatus can be shit. That's not what we are talking. Adeshas, if they are shit, only specific to adeshas, this whole discussion is going on. So if adeshas are shit, then that adesha is always sarvadesha. So now, how is this entire system coming up? The default rule is that every adesha is antyadesha, but special conditions will convert it to a different form. If there is a purva nimitta given, tasmat parasya adeshaha bhavati iti uchyate chet adhyadeshaha. And if the adesha is anikal, or if the adesha is shita, then it becomes sarvadeshaha. This is the fundamental division. What? Vidya Bhagini, what is your question? Please raise your hand so that I can unmute you. उचितम्.
अस् धातोः भू इति अत्र भवति किल महोदय, तत्र एकः एव वर्णः न भकार उकार अस्ति.
बकार,
अस्तु अस्तु, क्षम्यताम्.
Okay, any further questions? This is very crucial, so please make sure you understand it thoroughly well, because once you understand this, sutras are going to be piece of cake. So what did we learn so far? The default adesha is antyadesha, but if there is a parasya adesha, then it is adhyadesha. If it is anekal or shit adesha, it is sarvadesha. Geeta Bhagini. Geeta Bhagini. Okay, I think you are unable to. You can type the question if you want.
Mohoday, one more example for aneka adil.
Oh, we are going to see many examples. This is just an overview. We are going to see so many examples for each of them. Just keep some patience.
Sure.
Okay, just an overview.
Astu.
We have like 8 more slides for the same concept. This is just getting started with the things. So again, repeat. The default adesha is antyadesha, but then there parasya adesha, adyadesha, anekal adesha, sarvadesha. Now sometimes it happens that there is a certain adesha which is anekal as well as parasya. So Panini Maharshi will give purva nimitta, which means there is a chance of being adyadesha, but at the same time adesha is anekal adesha, or at the same time adesha is a shit adesha. So then there is a conflict between adev parasya and anekal shit sarvasya. So when there is a conflict between adev parasya and anekal shit sarvasya, the purva para comparison happens and the para sutra wins. We are going to study Vipratishede Param Karyam towards the end of this module. But in general, I have mentioned this once in the class that when there is a conflict between Purva and Para, the Para Sutra wins. So whenever there is a conflict between Adev Parasya and Anekalshit Sarvasya, Anekalshit Sarvasya wins and it becomes an Sarvadesha. So आदेहे परस्य इत्यनेन परस्य आदेशः यः विहितः अस्ति सः अनेकाल अस्ति नो चेत् षित् अस्ति चेत् सर्वादेश रूपेण एव विधीयते. Again, I am going to give all examples. For now, just understand the theory. And finally, there are some special adeshas which are anekal adeshas, but Panini Maharshi wants them as antyadeshas. So some adeshas are anekal adeshas. But Panini Maharshi realized while doing the Sutra Patha, while creating the Sutra Patha, that these only replace the last letter of the sthani. For such adeshas, Panini Maharshi has created that remaining sutram. So we have seen alontyasya, adev parasya, anekalshit sarvasya. There is a remaining sutram nichya. That nichya sutram is created specifically for those anekal adeshas. Panini Maharshi says, I will add a nakara as itsamyaka in those adeshas. So for example, here is an adesha, anang is a sample adesha. It comes up in formation of the sakhi word. So anang is an adesha, nakara is its samyaka. Even if you remove this nakara, it is anekal adesha, but this is expected to come towards the end, only replacing the last letter of the sthani. So such mit adeshas are always antyadeshas. So mit adesha, which is anekal, becomes antyadesha. If it is an ekal adesha, it doesn't need to be git. It is automatically antyadesha. But if it is anekal and Panini Maharshi wants it to be antyadesha, Panini Maharshi will add a nakara as a marker, as a code to indicate that this anekal adesha is actually antyadesha. So Mitcha comes as an apavada to anekal shit sarvasya. So how is this structure of the 4 sutras? The basic default is that adesha antyadesha asti. The first level of apavadas is that parasya adesha adyadesha asti, anekal adesha sarvadesha asti, shit adesha sarvadesha asti. That's the first level of apavadas. Even in that level, there is a purva parabhava. Parasya anekal adeshah sarvadeshah asti, parasya shit adeshah sarvadeshah asti. And then there is a further second level of apavada. अनेकाल आदेशा यहाँ ngit asti, saha antyadeshah asti. There is no direct relationship between adev parasya and ngitcha. There is no direct relationship between the shitta component and ngitcha. So the only relationship is अनेकाल आदेशः यहाँ ngit अस्ति सः अन्त्यादेश रूपेण एव कार्यं करोति. If this general structure is clear, now I will start with the examples. So the first sutram over here, alontyasya, it is the utsarga, adeshaha sthaninaha antima varnasya sthane eva vidhiyate. The example that we saw is tyadadi namaha, tyadadi ganasya shabdebhyaha, vibhakti pratyaya pare, iti adeshah vidhiyate. This is obviously not anekal. there is obviously no paranimittam, no purva nimittam. We are not saying something tasmat parasya. We are not saying anything like that. This is not a mit adesha. So remaining three are shot down. The default utsarga is that ayam adesha angasya antima varnasya sthane vidhiyate. So tada plus su, only the dakara will be replaced by akara. Sta plus su, and then the further prakriya will happen. So that is aloontyasya. The first apavada is adev parasya पूर्वनिमित्तस्य आधारेण उक्तः आदेशः प्रथम वर्णस्य स्थाने एव विधीयते. So the same example द्यन्तरूपसर्गेभ्यः अपईत द्विशब्दात् परस्य अपशब्दस्य इकारादेशः भवति. अत्र द्वि इति पूर्वनिमित्तं दत्त्वा तस्य आधारेण अपशब्दस्य आदेशः उक्तः. अतः अयम् आदेशः आद्यादेशरूपेण विधीयते. So द्वि प्लस अप इत्यत्र अ इति आदिवर्णस्य स्थाने इकारादेशः भवति. This is an example of आदेः परस्य. The next apavada of the aloontyasya was anekalshit sarvasya. So anekalshit sarvasya iti dvitiyah apavadah अनेकाल आदेशः नो चेत् शित आदेशः संपूर्णः स्थानिनः निष्कासनं कृत्वा विधीयते. So let's take one example of anekal and one example of shit. So अस्तेर भुः इति सूत्रेण अस इति धातोः भू आदेशः भवति. भू इति अनेकाल आदेशः, भ प्लस उ अनेकाल आदेशः. अतः अयं सर्वादेश रूपेण विधीयते. अस is entirely replaced by bhu. So that is anekal component. The second component is shita. There is a sutram called idamaha isha. Idam iti shabdasya isha iti adeshah bhavati. Now look at isha. Shakara is at the end. This is an upadesha because Panini Maharshi is telling that this is an adesha. So shakara automatically becomes its samyaka by halantyam. And when shakara goes away, it is a single letter. It is not anekal. It is ekal. Just e remains. So we cannot use the anekal part of anekalshit sarvasya to justify the sarvadeshatva. But we still want it as a sarvadesha. The shit part is used to justify that. So isha iti adesha, shit adesha asti. As soon as it becomes a shit adesha, you don't count the number of letters. Sarvadesha rupena eva vidhiyate. So idama, the entire idama is converted to isha. Now somebody might just say, where is e getting converted? So it is not, that's not how you look at it. Sh is its samyaka, sh is removed, and entire idama is getting converted to e. Effectively, it means the and ma part is removed, but that's not how the adesha is coming. Adesha is just replacing the entire idama with ish, and then the sh will go away as its samya. It will just keep e as it is. So e plus her, e her, very well known word, e her. Iha word is derived exactly like this. You start with idama, you apply the ha pratyaya, idamohaha, and then you say idamaha isha. Convert idama to isha. Sha goes by its samya. E plus ha, iha is the word, is how that particular word is derived. So this is an example of a shita adesha becoming sarvadesha. And now remember that there can be a conflict between adev parasya and anekalshit sarvasya, and then we use that purva para heuristics. Therefore, anekalshit sarvasya iti paratvat adev parasya ityetam badhate. So adev parasya loses, anekalshit sarvasya wins. How? Let's see two examples. Why two examples? One example where the anekal property conflicts, and second where the shit property conflicts. So let's take this sutram ato bhisa aisa. This is the sutram that converts the bhisa pratyaya to aisa. Bhisa is the tritiya bahuvachana pratyaya. Su aujas am auchas tabhyam bhis. But in the rasva akaranta words, it is devaha devau devaha, devam devau devan, devena devabhyan, devaihi, not devebhihi, devaihi. So that bhisa pratyaya is converted to ais for rasva akaranta words. The sutra is ato bhisa ais. Ato bhisa ais iti sutrena adant angat vihitasya. So there is adant anga on the left. तस्मात् परस्य भिस इति प्रत्ययस्य ऐस् आदेशः भवति. So observe what is happening. There is a purva nimitta adantat angat vihitasya भिस pratyayasya. So purva nimitta is there, which means adev parasya is actually going to come in action. But what is the adesha? Adesha is the ais adesha. This particular adesha is anikal adesha. Why? Because the sakara which is present at the end of this adesha cannot become its samyaka by halantyam. Na vibhaktau tusmaha is going to block it. Na vibhaktau tusmaha says vibhakti pratyayasthaha ta varga sakara makaraha na itaha. So in a vibhakti pratyaya like aisa, the sakara is not going to be an its samyaka, so it remains there. Therefore there are two letters, therefore it is anikal. So you have an adesha which is anikal on one side and parasya adesha on. And is there an issue with my internet connection? You can just type the message. No, right? Okay. Okay. Was everything audible? Okay. Was everything audible till now? Do you want me to repeat anything? Okay. So what is happening over here is, okay, let's repeat this once again. Okay, I get it. Let's repeat this once again. So what we are saying is adantat angat vihitasya vis pratyasya ais iti adeshah bhavati. Atra ais iti adeshe kim asti? Adantat angat vihitasya. So there is a purva nimitta given. Adanta anga tasmad vihitasya. So adantad angat vihitasya. Therefore parasya adeshah. So adev parasya is a viable candidate over here. But at the same time, ais is anikal adesha. Why is it anikal adesha? Because sakara which is present at the end, it cannot go undergo an itsamya by halantyam. Na vibhaktau tusmaha is going to block it. Na vibhaktau tusmaha says vibhakti pratyaye vidyamanaha, vibhakti pratyasya ante vidyamanaha tavargiya varnaha sakara makaraha itsamyakaha na bhavanti. And here this is a vibhakti pratyaya. Asya ante vidyamanaha sakaraha itsamyakaha nasti. Therefore there are actually two letters I and sa, and therefore this is anekal adesha. Therefore this adesha on one side it is anekal, on another side it is adeh, on another side it is parasya adesha. So there is a conflict between adev parasya and anekal shit sarvasya. In such a conflict, the anekalshit sarvasya will win. So atra adeshasya anekaltvat पूर्वनिमित्ते सति अपि अयम आदेशः सर्वादेशरूपेण एव विधीयते. So entire bhis is converted to ais. So that is the conflict between anikal and adev parasya. Similarly, we can take an example of conflict between shita and adev parasya. There is a sutram called Ashtadhyayi. This sutra, very simple sutram, it says Ashta. So there is a word called Ashta which is generated from Ashtan. So the number 8, Ashtan, is converted to Ashta during the prakriya. And then this sutra comes in Ashta iti shabdat parasya jas iti pratyasya aush adeshaha bhavati. So when you say Ashta plus Jasa, Jasa is converted to Aush. Aush iti adeshaha bhavati. So again, Ashta Shabdat Parasya. So there is a Purva Nimitta given. Tasmat Parasya Adesha Ukta asti. So Adev Parasya is in picture. However, the Adesha is a Shit Adesha. Aush is a Shit Adesha. So the shit component of anekal shit sarvasya is also in the picture. Thus, when there is a conflict, the anekal shit sarvasya will win. Atra adeshasya shitvat पूर्वनिमित्ते सति अपि अयम आदेशः सर्वादेश रूपेण एव स्वीक्रियते. So entire jasa is converted to ausha. Ashta plus jasa becomes ashta plus ausha. In this particular way, whenever there is a conflict between anekalshit sarvasya and adev parasya, it is always the anekalshit sarvasya that wins over adev parasya. So that is the first level of apavadas. And then finally, the second level of apavada, nitcha iti sarvesham apavadaha, nit adeshaha antyadesha rupena eva vidhiyate. So this is the sutram as I was mentioning, sakhi iti shabdasya sandarbhena, anang sau iti sutrena, sakhi iti shabdasya supratyaya pare anang adeshaha bhavati. The word sakhi is converted to anang. This is an anekal adesha. Many letters are there, but still the gankara is its samyaka. Ayam nit adesha, atah ayam antyadesha rupena eva vidhiyate, which means the last ikara of sakhi. That's the only thing that is going to get converted to anang. So sakhi becomes sakha, and instead of that ikara, anang will come. So in this particular way, the nit adesha is used as antyadesha. Here is another example. Jayayaha ning. Jayayaha is shashti, not panchami. Jayayaha ning. Atra jaya iti shabdasya ning adeshaha bhavati. Ayam ning adeshaha punarekvaram nit asti. Atah antyadesha rupena vidhiyate. So jaya plus ninga, only that akara is converted to ninga. In this way, we have seen the clear explanation and examples of the four sutras alontyasya, nicha, adev parasya and anekalshit sarvasya. Now, if there are any questions only on the material that is taught, please raise your hands. Somebody is asking, ais ityatra shakaraha nasti. So yes, ais does not have a shakara because ais is for the anekal property. Anekal shit sarvasya talks about two different cases, anekal adesha and shita adesha. So if you look at ais, it is not shita, but it is anekal. Therefore, it will satisfy the anekal part of anekal shit sarvasya. Anekal shit sarvasya does not mean anekal and shita, either anekal or shita. Ratnakar Mahoday.
Namaste Acharya. Shruyate va mama dhvani.
Shruyate.
The thing is, the concept of anekal is applied to the adesha only, but it has got nothing to do with sthani. Whether it is anekal, ekal, it has got like asther bhu. It only talks about bhu, whether it has anekal or not, but it doesn't talk anything about as dhatu. Is that so? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, the adesha, the sthani is going to go away. The letters of the sthani do not matter. It is the letters of the adesha which is coming, only those matter.
Fine. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so the hard part is now done. Only sutras, and you will see extremely easy. You will understand almost everything now. So alontyasya. What is the sutrartha? Shashti nirdishtasya antyasya alaha adeshaha syat. This is the utsarga. So Panini Maharshi says, by default, whenever a sthani is in the Shashti Vibhakti and an adesha is being told, that's antyasya alaha, only on the last letter. So alaha antyasya iti padachhedaha. There are some anuvrittis. Anuvritti sahitam sutram shashtya nirdishtasya antyasya alaha sthane adeshaha vidhiyate. So whatever the shashthyanta sthani was there, on that sthani, the last letter will be replaced by adesha. So adeshah स्थानिनः इत्युक्ते षष्ठी निर्दिष्टस्य अन्तिमवर्णस्य स्थाने विधीयते. त्यदादीनां was the example. This is the utsarga. Agrimani त्रीणि सूत्राणि अपवादरूपेण प्रवर्तन्ते. The next sutram is nicha. Now understand the ordering in which Panini Maharshi has written. The order in which we learned alontyasya, that's the utsarga, adev parasya and anekalshit sarvasya, that's the first level of apavada, and nicha, that's the second level of apavada. But alontyasya and nicha are put together because both of them are antyadeshas. So in order to use anuvrittis, in order to achieve some alpaksharatvam, Panini Maharshi combines alontyasya and nicha in single place. Single place means not single sutra but near each other, so that the antyasya word can come as an anuvritti from the previous sutram to the next sutram. So in the sequence, the next sutram is nicha, which is the second level of apavada. So that's the sutram nicha. Nit adeshah antyasya eva syat. Nit cha antyasya alaha. This come as an anuvritti. Nit antyasya alaha. So nit is nakaraha ityasmin saha. There is anang, there is anang. Tatang is not the correct example here. I'll remove that. It's a little advanced, so I'll not explain why I'm removing it, but let's not talk about it right now. So anang is an adesha, anang is an adesha, ning was an adesha, jayaya, ning, and so on. Ayam nit adesha antima varanasya sthane eva vidhiyate. The example is anang sau ityanena uktaha anang adeshaha. So sakhi ikara is replaced by anang, and this is sarvesham apavadaha. And Balamanorama explains this, that alontyasya was already telling the antyadesha. Why is again nicha told? So nanu alontyasya iti purva sutrenaiva siddhe kimarthamidam. So he says it is because this sutra is coming as an apavada to anekalshit sarvasya. So anekalshit sarvasya iti vakshamanasya. Vakshamana means will be told. So in the ordering in which Panini Maharshi has written sutras is confusing. He first teaches alontyasya. So student understands, okay, all adeshas are antyadeshas. And the next thing Panini Maharshi teaches is nit adesha is also antyadesha. So any sensible student will ask, why that next sutra is immediately created? Previous sutra was anyway giving antyadesha. We are not having that problem because we learned it in the right way. The first utsarga, then the first level of apavada, and the second level of apavada. But anybody who is blindly studying in the Ashtadhyayi order will obviously have this question. Alontyasya ittenenapi antyadesha ukta. Why is the next sutram again telling antyadesha? So Balamanorama is explaining this. Nanu alontyasya iti purvasutrenaiva siddhe kimarthamidam. Anekalshit sarvasya will be told. So anekalshit sarvasyeti vakshamanasya sarvadesha vidhehe ayam vidhi apavadaha. So this is not coming as an apavada of alontyasya. Alontyasya will be blocked by anekalshit sarvasya. That will further be blocked by nicha. So alontyasya purva sutrenaiva siddhe iti kimartham idam kimartham उत्तरम किम अनेकालशित सर्वस्येति वक्षमाणस्य सर्वादेशत्व विधेहे अयम विधि अपवादः. So that's the nicha sutram. The third is adev parasya. Now simple territory, we are coming at the first level of apavada. Parasya yad vihitam tat tasya adehe bodhyam. So adehe parasya. Anuvritti sahitam sutram parasya adehe alaha. Ala means a single letter. Anekal means many letters. So ekal or al means single letter. So parasya adehe alaha. The single initial letter of the para nimitta, of the para entity, which means the purva nimitta is given. After that will be the sthani, because the structure is always purva nimitta, sthani and para nimitta. So purva nimitta anantaram sthani vidyate, purva nimittam dattva अस्मात् परस्य आदेशः भवति इति अत्र विधानं कृतम् अस्ति. तत्र तादृशः आदेशः स्थानिनः आदिवर्णस्य स्थाने विधीयते. The example is dvyantarupasargebhyah up it. We have seen this, and this sutram is blocked. It blocks alontyasya. So idam sutram alontyasya ityasya apavada rupena pravartate, and then anekalshit survasya will block this by paratva. I mean, this should be now very clear because we have spent last 50 minutes in explaining that through the diagram in details. So anekalshit sarvasya iti sutran idam sutram paratvad badhyate. Finally, the last sutram, anekalshit sarvasya अनेकाल आदेशः शित आदेशः च सर्वस्य स्यात्. So अनेकाल शित सर्वस्य. अनेकाल means न एकाल. एकः एव वर्णः नास्ति इत्युक्ते द्विवर्णयुक्तः बहुवर्णयुक्तः सः अनेकाल. and shita means shakarah it asti yasmin saha. So अनेकाल आदेशः तथा च शित आदेशः संपूर्णः स्थानिनः संपूर्णं स्थान संपूर्णस्य स्थानिनः निष्कासनं कृत्वा तस्य स्थाने विधीयते. So उदाहरणम् अस्तेर्भुः is for अनेकाल, इदमः ish is for shita. This sutram is the blocker of alontyasya. It is also the blocker of adev parasya. We have seen this through examples like atobhis aisa or ashtabhya ausho. That completes the 4 types of adeshas: the antyadesha, adyadesha, sarvadesha and ekadesha. Any questions on this topic? Savita ji.
Namaskaram, Mahodaya. Does it mean that every time in a prakriya vidhanam, in the prakriya vidhanam, you have to follow that order only, always? If you see nakara,
Which order? Which order?
the alontyasya, you have to check for the, you have to do the alontyasya first, then do the other apavad, then check for the other apavadas, and then go to the next.
It's always reverse. You first check for the apavadas, then utsarga. So first you check if it is a ngita. If it is a ngita, it will always be antyadesha by ngitcha. You walk reverse. Always remember, first try checking apavada. If apavada is not fitting, then try utsarga. Utsarga will always fit, right?
Oh, astu.
So coming to
So
the
when
point,
in the prakriya, we always see the first, the pratyaya only. So nakara only will be seen when we are doing the prakriya. So that's why I thought, so we have to come from the down, upward.
yeah, obviously. You come from the, anytime there is a relationship called utsarga apavada, you first check if it is apavada or not. First check if it is a nakara. If it is nakara ito, then it automatically becomes antyadesha. If not, then check shakara ito. Then it is sarvadesha. If not, then check whether it is anekala. Then it is sarvadesha. If not, then check whether there is a purva nimitta. So that parasya adesha. Then that will be adyadesha. If nothing matches, then by default all adeshas are antyadeshas. So you walk the reverse. Okay? Anything else? Okay? So the most difficult part of today's class is done. And now simple sutras are there. We are still have to cover 1, 2, 3, 4 more sutras. Iko guna vruddhi adyanto takito midachotyat parat parascha. So simple sutras are there. Let's go to the next sutram. Iko guna vruddhi. This is the very beginning sutram. Vruddhiradaich adaying gunaha iko guna vruddhi. गुणवृद्धि शब्दाभ्याम यत्र गुणवृद्धि विधीयते तत्र इक इति षष्ठ्यन्तं पदम् उपतिष्ठते. This is the sutrartha. What does it mean? Let's understand in the simple language first. Whenever in any sutram there is a word called guna and the intended meaning is gunaha bhavati, or there is a word called vruddhi, the intended meaning is vruddhihi bhavati. So anytime an adesha is indicated by the word guna or by the word vruddhi, in all such sutras, bring the word ikaha as a extra word and put it over there. So ikaha means ikvarnasya sthane. Ikaha is shashthantam padam. Ikvarnasya sthane. So take the verbatim word ikaha and put it in that sutra. So whenever that sutra says gunaha bhavati, read the sutra as ikaha gunaha bhavati, which means ikvarnasya gunaha bhavati. Random varnas are not going to undergo guna. Only ikvarnasya gunaha bhavati. What is ika? I, u, ru, lu. Ayun, ruluk, eong. So that particular thing. So iuna and ruluka. So I along with dirgha, u along with dirgha, ru along with dirgha, and lu. सो गुणः भवति इत्युक्ते इकः गुणः भवति, वृद्धिः भवति इत्युक्ते इकः वृद्धिः भवति. सो यत्र गुण इति शब्देन गुणः भवति, वृद्धि इति शब्देन वृद्धिः भवति इति निर्दिश्यते, तत्र इकः इति षष्ठ्यन्तं पदं सूत्रार्थे स्थापनीयम्. That's exactly what the official sutrartha says. Guna-vruddhi shabdabhyam yatra guna-vruddhi vidhiyete. So the word guna is used to say that guna happens. Word vruddhi is used to say vruddhi happens. Guna-vruddhi shabdabhyam yatra guna-vruddhi vidhiyete. Tatra ika iti shashtyantam padam upatisthate, comes and sits over there. We have seen this kind of behavior earlier also. Shashti sthane yoga. Sthane word verbatim comes and sits. So when you say iko yanachi, ikaha sthane yana bhavati. Just like the way sthane was coming and sitting, here ikaha word comes and sits. So guna iti shabdena gunaha bhavati, vruddhi iti shabdena vruddhi bhavati iti atra uchyate, tatra ikaha iti sutre noche sutrarthe padam sthapaniyam. So ikaha guna vruddhi is the padacheda. The vruddhi and the guna come as an anuvrutti from the previous two sutras. So first sutra vruddhi radaic, there is a word vruddhi. Second sutra adain gunaha, there is a word guna. Both vruddhi and guna come as an anuvrutti. So vruddhi will come by manduka pluti and guna will come by anuvrutti. To iko guna vruddhi. So ika guna vruddhi now has two guna words and two vruddhi words. One actually present and one coming from anuvrittis. So that's what the sutrarth also uses it two times. Guna iti shabdena gunaha vidhiyate, vruddhi iti shabdena va vruddhi vidhiyate. So that's why the guna and vruddhi are totally present two times. Gunaha vruddhihi etabhyam nirdishtau guna vruddhi ikaha sthane eva bhavataha iti arthaha. So simple example. There is a sutram called mider gunaha. Mider gunaha sutram says midadhatoho gunaha bhavati. Clearly the word guna is present in the sutram. So atra sutrarthe ikaha iti shashtyantam padam sthapaniyam. So midehe ikaha gunaha. So you don't use alontyasya, nicha, adef, parasya and so on. You actually bring the word ikaha and say that ikka letter asti tasya gunaha bhavati. So midehe ikaha gunaha bhavati. Midadhatoho ikkavarnasya gunaha bhavati. So for example, mida plus shana plus tipa. This is the dhatu of the chaturtha gana. So this is the prakriya. Mida becomes meda. E becomes a. So what is a guna? A or O are gunas. Akara, ekara, okara. Etesham guna samnya bhavati. So one of them will come. Which will come? We are going to learn in tomorrow's class. For now, just assume ekara comes. So E becomes A. It is not important here that ekara is coming. What is important is E ityasya sthane ekaraha vidhiyate. So ikvarnasya sthane tatra gunaha bhavati. Similarly, mrujer vruddhihi. Iti sutrena mruja iti dhatoho vruddhihi bhavati. So again, the sutra says vruddhihi bhavati. So you have ikka is the shashtyantam padam that comes and sits in the sutrartha. So mruja dhatoho ikvarnasya. That is the rukara. Rukara is also ikvarna. So mruja dhatoho ikvarnasya gunaha bhavati iti atra sutrarthaha siddhyati. Now, the obvious question that a lot of students ask in this particular context is that what is the relationship between alontyasya and iko guna vruddhi? So, alontyasya tells you that the adesha happens on the last letter, but iko guna vruddhi is telling that the adesha is happening on the ik letter. So, how are they conflicting with each other? The fundamental point you have to understand is that alontyasya iti sutrena sthanasya nirdeshaha bhavati. Varnasya nirdeshaha nasti. Antyasya, so whosoever is the last, and iko guna vruddhi says varna ikka ityasya adesha bhavati. So there is actually no conflict. All that alontyasya is saying is bring the adesha on the, put the adesha to the last, and iko guna vruddhi is saying do the adesha on the ik letter. So bahushu sthaleshu dvayoho api ekatra rupena prasaktihi bhavati. So if there is a sutram called sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayoho, which says angasya gunaha bhavati. So this sutram says angasya gunaha bhavati, just like the way previous one midehe gunaha bhavati. This is angasya gunaha bhavati. Now you can apply both the sutras. Alontyasya says angasya antima varnasya gunaha bhavati. इको गुणवृद्धि says ikah gunah bhavati. So ikah iti षष्ठ्यन्तं padam upatishthate. So you combine the two, just merge the two sutrarthas. What will be the final sutrartha? Angasya antima ikvarnasya gunah bhavati. So you don't see all letters, you only see the ik letters, whatever is the antima ik letter. So ni plus tuma, whenever that last letter is ik letter, ni plus tuma, ne tuma antima ik varnasya gunah bhavati. So it must be the last letter and it must be ik letter. Yatra antima varnaha ik varnaha nasti, tatra only one condition is satisfied, so you don't get the guna. Yatra anyatra ik varnaha asti, tatrapi gunaha na bhavati. So angasya antima varnasya gunaha and angasya ik varnasya gunaha both are combined and happens, the intersection happens, not the union. It's not either antima varna or or ika. Intersection happens. An antima letter which is an ika, on that the guna happens. So antima varna ik varna nasti chet gunaha na bhavati. So da plus tum, you don't get a gunadesha. Anyatra ik varna asti chet abhi gunadesha na bhavati. So krida plus tum, you don't get a gunadesha. The gunadesha happens. I am talking specifically about sarvadhatuka ardhadhatuka. This sutram. By this sutram, whenever it says angasya gunaha bhavati, it is the antima ikvarnasya gunaha bhavati. So you simply see the last letter. When that letter is ikka letter, you do a gunadesha. Any questions on iko guna vriddhi? Ratnakar Mahoday.
This is a little weird. When you said guna and vriddhi happens in ikvarnas, or wherever you read guna or vriddhi, no. Correct. Wherever we read the guna and vriddhi, it is invariably in ikvarnas only. But it's not the other way around. No, like whenever we read it as ik, there it is not guna or vriddhi.
No. All that this sutra is saying is gunaha yatra bhavati tatra ikvarnasya sthane bhavati. Whenever there is ika, it's not guna or vriddhi. Whenever guna is the action, vriddhi is the action. Whenever guna happens or vriddhi happens, it happens on the ik letter. That's all. Okay. Any further question? There is a question over here. Likha dhatoho lekhitum iti bhavati. So I was expecting somebody to ask this question. Likha, that's why I explicitly wrote the Krida example. So likha dhatoho lekhitum iti bhavati. So there is a question over here which says likha plus tumun becomes lekhitum. And how is that guna happening? So correct, the guna is happening, but it is not happening by sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayoh. There is an altogether different sutram which tells you that do a guna on the second last letter. So there is a separate sutram that explicitly says do a guna on the second last letter, and then the guna will happen by that sutram. Now, whenever such a sutram comes in, do a guna on the second last letter, there is no aniyama, so alontyasya will not come in. Understand? Alontyasya, nicha and all that, they don't come in randomly. These are paribhashas. So only when there is a niyama, only when there is a confusion, these paribhashas will come in. If there is a sutram which says explicitly do the guna on the second last letter, then you only need to bring ikka, because ikka is still there. But alontyasya, the sthana, that samshaya is not there. So that particular paribhasha is not required. Somebody is saying upadha something. Purnima ji, you want to ask the question? Raise the hand so that I can unmute you. Vadatu.
नमस्ते महोदय न तत्र लैक् लिख धातोः विषये तत्र उपधायां गुणः भवति इति तुमन् प्रत्ययस्य इति तदेव खलु
upada. So second last letter gets an honor. So this is explicitly told, so you don't need to apply on this. Correct. Yes. And it is nothing to do with sarvadhatuka ardhadhatuka. It's an altogether different sutra. Okay. Agre gachhamaha. So please understand, we started the class by saying we want to talk about 5 different vidheyas. Only first vidheya is done, adesha. Thankfully, remaining are very easy. Within 10-15 minutes, we should be done. But 4 vidheyas are remaining. Lopa, Dvitva, Agama and Pratyaya are still remaining. Only Adesha is done at the moment. So let's now go to the Lopaha. The same slide as one of the previous classes. कस्यचित् पदार्थस्य अदर्शनं यत्र भवति तत्र तस्य पदार्थस्य स्थाने शून्यम् इति आदेशः क्रियते. That is called lopa. So as I mentioned, lopa is essentially putting a zero in place of that entity. So it is zero ityasya adesha vidhanam. And therefore, lopa is considered ekal adesha. Now you might ask, it is not even ekal, it is shunya al adesha. So 0 letters are coming in. So that is correct. But for all practical purposes, it is not anekal. So the sutram is, remember, the sutras is not ekal versus anekal. The sutra says general adesha is antyadesha and anekal adesha is sarvadesha. And shunya is definitely not anekal adesha. So for all practical purposes, it is considered like ekal. So ekal adesha sadrushaha. That's why I have explicitly said sadrushaha. I am not saying ekal adeshaha svikriyate. It is not ekal. But behavior of that shunya adesha is like ekal adesha. Ataha lopaha bhavati iti yada vadamaha tada antima varnasya lopaha bhavati is the by default understanding. So alontyasya is also applicable for lopas because lopa, which is actually an adesha of shunya, is equivalent to how an adesha of an ekala entity will happen. Therefore, example over here, padashatasya sankhyader vipsayam vun lopascha. Iti sutramasti. You don't need to worry about what all these things this sutra says, but it basically says that पाद इति शब्दात् वुन इति प्रत्ययः भवति तथा च पाद शब्दस्य लोपः भवति. So pada word gets the vuna pratyaya and pada is removed. Now what do you mean pada is removed? Pada shabdasya antima varnasya lopaha vidhiyate because alontyasya will come in the picture. So dvipada plus vuna. पाद शब्दात् वुन इति प्रत्ययः and पाद शब्दस्य अन्तिम वर्णस्य इत्युक्ते अन्तिम अकारस्य लोपः विधीयते. So द्विपाद plus vun इति अत्र भवति. So this way a lopa is always antyadesha, always replaces the last letter. There are, however, two exceptions. Only two exceptions, very simple exceptions. Two exceptions are there. Except for these two exceptions, everywhere the lopa is antyadesha, like behaves with the alontyasya sutram. The exception is when we have those special samnyas for lopa, luka, shlu and lupa. Whenever the lopa is done using those special samnyas, it is always sarvadesha. So luka, shlu tatha lupa एताभिः संज्ञाभिः उक्तः लोपः सर्वस्य प्रत्ययस्य स्थाने भवति. प्रत्ययस्य लोप is called either luka or shlu or lupa. So षड्भ्यो लुक शश इति प्रातिपदिकात् विहितस्य जस् प्रत्ययस्य लुक भवति. When you have shasha plus jasa, there is a jas pratyaya that undergoes a luka. षड्भ्यो लुक. Now technically there is a purva nimittam over here. So maybe does ade parasya apply? So the answer is no, because there is a luka being told, it is always sarvadesha. Entire jas pratyaya is removed. So luka iti shabdena, lupa iti shabdena, shlu iti shabdena yaha lopa uchyate, saha sarvasya pratyasya sthane bhavati. That is the reason why the word pratyayasya is told in the sutram is what one of the commentaries says. So pratyayasya lukshlupaha ityatra pratyayasya iti grahanam sarvadeshartham asti. We will not go in the details. It is a little bit advanced shastra. I just wanted to show that what I am talking, there is no sutra for that. So there is no direct sutram in Ashtadhyayi which says that luka means sarvadesha, shlu means sarvadesha and so on. So I quoted a line from the commentary, pratyay grahanam sarvadeshartham, the luk, shlu and lupa, these kind of lopas are the sarvadeshas. So that's the first exception. And the second exception is the lopa of itsamyaka letters. तस्य लोपः इति सूत्रेण यः लोपः विधीयते सः अपि सर्वस्य भवति. This matters for the itsamyaka letters like ir or tu or do adir yitudavaha. So in case of tu, in case of do, so tu or do or say ir, there are multiple letters. So if you just say lopaha bhavati ityatra alontyasya ityanen antimavarnasya lopaha bhavati, then only ukara of tu will go away, only ukara of do will go away, and that will cause problem. So tasya lopaha iti sutrena itsamyakasya varnaha itsamyakasya yaha lopaha krita asti saha api sampurna itsamyak padarthasya sthane bhavati. So in case of a dhatu like to o shvi, entire to goes, entire o goes, and only shvi remains. So in this way, only two exceptions. So just to recollect, all lopas by default are antyadeshas. The only two exceptions, luka, shlu, and lupa. एताभिः संज्ञाभिः उक्तः लोपः सर्वादेशः and tasya लोपः इत्यनेन उक्तः लोपः इत्युक्ते इत्संज्ञकस्य लोपः अपि सर्वादेशः. That's all about lopa. Let me just run through the remaining slides. Okay, we'll take a question. Sudhavalli ji. Sudhavalli.
Hey, Mahoday.
Namaste.
Lopaha, look, shlu, lup. There are four types of adarshanam. Why it is called lopaha only, not the adarshanam in all the cases?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Lopaha, we are calling as lopaha only, not the there are four types of adarshanam. Why it is not called adarshanam in all the places, rather than we are using lopaha only for
on the slide you are saying?
No, in general.
Because lopaha is a general term. Lopaha ityukte adarshanam. So pratyayasya adarshanam luk shlu lup samnyaya uchyate. So you can say luk is adarshanam, lup is adarshanam. That's also fine. Lopaha is a general term, so we just say lopaha. That's it. It's a general
term. Is adarshanam is not a general term. There are four types of adarshanam.
No. Adarshanam is the term that is known to you. It is uddesham. The grammatical term is not adarshanam. The grammatical term is lopaha. That's why the sutra says adarshanam lopaha. The concept of adarshanam, which is in your mind in grammar, is called lopaha. And
whereas
that lopaha is
look, shlu, lup or adarshanam only, they are not the lopas. They are only adarshanam.
That's what I'm saying. Every adarshanam is called lopa in grammar. Okay. Further, some lopas are specialized as luka, shlu, and lupa. So if whether an entity, so shadbhyo luka ityatra shash iti pratipadikaat vitase jas pratyase luka bhavati ityukte lopa bhavati ityukte adarshanam bhavati. So lopa is a general term. If you are confused why it is called luka and lopa both, you can just say for example adarshanam, but lopa is a general term. Somebody is saying over here there are three special lopas, so these are used for their individual karyas. That's all.
Dhanyawad.
So somebody is saying purvam vidyamana idanim adrishyaha bhutaha iti lopaha iti vaktum shakyate. Savita ji.
Mahodaya, adarshanam lopaha, from that sutra, you are giving four types of lopa. Lopa is defined, and then there are four types of lopa. The exception is given for all the four here. So what other kind of lopas are also existing in Ashtadhyayi?
Exception is given for all four means?
For which we have to, the ekal adesha sadrush, this...
lopa. So, see, lopa is on... So, here is an example. Like, padashatasa sankhyader vipsayam mun lopascho. There is a lopa happening. There is not luka, there is not shlu, and there is no lupa. There is a general lopa happening, right? We
Correct,
explained
Madhya, but tasya lopa also is lopa only. That lopa only, no?
Yes, but that's why, see, tasya lopaha is general lopaha. That's why I mean, the alontyasya could have come in the picture. That's why I have written a vishesha that itsamyak varnasya krutaha lopaha sampurna itsamyak padarthasya sthani bhavati. So that's an exception over the general lopa.
Oh, okay.
Not clear?
Probably I'll read some more, Madhya.
Let's go over this slowly. The class is going to get extended, but let's understand the concepts. See, lopa is adarshanam. Lopa can happen on multiple things. Adesha can undergo a lopa, dhatu can undergo a lopa, pratyay can undergo a lopa, it letters can undergo a lopa, anything can undergo a lopa. The luka, shlu, lupa are specialized terms only for pratyayas. Adesha will not undergo a luka. Agama will not undergo a luka. Dhatu will not undergo a luka. It is the pratyayas that undergo a luka or shlu or lupa. In addition, the pratyayas can also undergo a lopa, which is not specialized as luka, shlu, lupa. So pratyayas can undergo 4 types of adarshanas. One is the general, which is lopa. The 3 are specialized, luka, shlu, lupa. With this thing in the background, now we are saying that if a pratyaya is undergoing a lopa by luka, shlu or lupa, then it is sarvadesha. Everywhere else, whether it is a pratyaya, whether it is a non-pratyaya, anytime the removal is by lopa term, it is antyadesha. So padashatasya sankhyader vipsayam lopascha. Lopa is happening, so it is antyadesha. That's all that we are saying. Is this clear?
Yes, Madhya.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, let's go ahead a few more slides. So we are done with lopa, we are done with adesha. Next is dvitva, very easy. Shabdasya kasyachana amshasya dvivarocharanam dvitvam namna jnayate. Now the point with dvitvam is that there are 3 types of dvitvams. We have learned this: dhatoho dvitvam, varnasya dvitvam, and padasya dvitvam. This slide is repeated from class number 9 or 10. And whenever there is a dvitvam, I have also mentioned that the original entity is taken out and 2 copies are placed in that place. So da plus ti ityatra da ityasya dvitvam bhavati. So it is not some original da and a new da coming and sitting to the left or right. It is one da is removed and 2 das are added in that place. So anytime a dvitva is happening, something is automatically removed, which means an empty space is created and 2 copies are placed in that empty space. So whenever dvitvam happens, the space is already available to you. There is no aniyama, there is no asamshaya about dvitvam kutra bhavet. इत्यस्य विषये तत्र असंशयः नास्ति. सो यत्र द्वित्वम् उक्तम् अस्ति तत्र स्वस्थाने एव द्विवारं ग्रहणं क्रियते. Whatever is the entity that's replicated, that is being removed, a whole is created and 2 copies are placed in that whole. So स्वस्थाने एव द्विवारं ग्रहणं क्रियते. अतः द्वित्वकार्यस्य संदर्भेण संशयः एव नास्ति. अतः द्वित्वस्य संदर्भेण अलोन्त्यस्य and so on is not used. So this completes Adesha, Lopa and Dvitva. The next is Agama. Thankfully, Agama is already told. Remember that Agama is of 3 types. There is a Titta Agama. I have explained all these in details. So there is a Titta Agama. It comes as an Adyavayava. There is a Kitta Agama which comes as an Antyavayava. And there is a Mitta Agama which comes after the last swara, whichever, it may not be at the last place, after the last swara of that particular sthani, agami. So this slide is again copied from class number 9 or 10. If you do not remember these, you have to go back, but nothing is new. So 3 agamas, tit, kit and mit, all that I'm going to teach are just the sutras. The next sutram in the sequence, adyantau takitau. This sutram says that the tit agama is adyavayava, kit agama is antyavayava. So tit kitau yasya uktau tasya kramat adyantau avayavaustaha. So 2 types of agamas, and two locations are combined in a single sutram. You have to do a yatha sankhya mapping one by one. Tomorrow I'm going to teach about it in more details. But adyantau takitau means adi will map to tit and anta will map to kit. So adyantau takitau. Adyantau is adi cha antaha cha iti adi plus anta adyantau. Takitau is ta and ka. So you combine ta and ka, that is takau, and then you add ita at the end. So takau itau yayoho tau takitau. So that ita will individually go with ta and ka. So for example, when we say ka kha ga varnaha, which means either ka varna or kha varna or ga varna. In the same way, when you say takau itau, which means ta as an ita and ka as an ita. So tit agamaha tatha kit agamaha iti ashayaha yatha sankhyan vidhanam bhavati. So adi goes with ta, anta goes with ka. So tit iti adityanena sahanveti, kit iti antyatyanena sahanveti. Therefore tit agamaha आद्यवयवरूपेण विधीयते, कित आगमः अन्त्यावयवरूपेण विधीयते. Therefore, and the examples we have already seen, at agama is the adyavayava, and say shukka, so that agama is antyavayava. So these examples have already been taught in one of the previous classes. The next sutram is midachontyat paraha. Am I audible? Seems there is some internet issue today. Am I audible? Just say yes or no. Okay, fine. Did you miss anything from the previous slide? Hopefully not, right? Did you miss anything from the previous slide? All clear. Okay. And the next sutram, this talks about the mit agamaha. So midachontyat paraha. Again, it should be easy to understand. Mit achaha antyat paraha. Acham madhye yaha antyaha. So you look at all the swaras, whosoever is the last swara, acham madhye yaha antyaha, tasmat parasya antyavayavaha mit syat. So it is added after that, and then it becomes the avayava of that whole entity itself. So mit antyat achaha paraha. Achaha is the shashti ekvachanam. It is the nirdharana shashti. So achaha antyat. Ete sarve achvarnaha ye santi. Teshu antyaha yaha achvarnaha. Tasmat paraha ayam agamaha vidhiyate. So ach iti nirdharana shashti. मित आगमः यस्मात् विहितः अस्ति तस्मिन् शब्दे ये केपि अच्वर्णाः सन्ति तेषु अन्तिमः यः अच्वर्णः तस्मादनन्तरम् अयम् आगमः विधीयते. So idito num dhatoho is the num agama. It is a mit agama. So kappa, in the state of kappa, num agama is added. The last acha in kappa is the akara after ka. The num agama will be added after that. So ka plus num bhav. So all this was already taught, only the sutras are new. That's why I kept it all the way at the end. Midacho antyat paraha is the sutra that will say mit agamaha antyat achaha paraha, and adyantau takitau say tit and kit agama are respectively adyavayava and antyavayava. There is a small Shastra Vishaya, but you can keep it aside. If you want, you can read it. I just added for those who are interested. So that completes the Agama. So we completed Adesha, Lopa, Agama and Dvitva. The last thing is Pratyaya. There is a Sutram 3.1.2. What did I do? 3.1.2. So 3.1.1 is Pratyayaha. That's the beginning of 3. So 3.1.1, the beginning of the chapter 3 is Pratyayaha. This is the huge Pratyayadhikara, which says everything in chapter 3, chapter 4 and chapter 5 is Pratyaya. And immediately next sutram is Parascha, which says Pratyaya will be added par to that particular Prakruti. So Parascha iti sutrena Pratyayasya sthanam uchyate. So parascha saha bhavati dhatoho va pratipadikaat va yaha pratyaya samnyaha. So whatever is the pratyaya samnya that is being told in this entire adhikara, it will happen after the dhatu or the pratipadika. So paraha cha pratyayaha iti adhikaraha, pratyayaha paraha, So pratyayah prakrutehe anantaram vidhiyate. So tavyat tavyaniyarah ityanena vihitaha trayah pratyayah tavyat tavya aniyara, they will be added after the dhatu. So this way, let me go back all the way to the first slide right now. In this particular class, we are studying the places where all the vidheyas are added. So adesha, let's do a quick revision. Adesha, four types of adeshas: antyadesha, adyadesha, sarvadesha, ekadesha. Then agama, three types based on the sthanas. You can do classification in multiple ways. Right now, I am doing classification only based on the place where it comes. So, Adesha, four possible places. Agama, three possible places. Adyavayava, that's the Tit Agama. Antyavayava, that's the Kit Agama. And Antyadachaha Paraha, that's the Mit Agama. Lop is of two types. The general lop is always Antyavayava. But there is a special lop called Lukashlu or Lupa. It is Sarvasya. And itsamyak varnasya lopaha tasya lopaha ityanena uktaha api sarvasya. For dvitvam, there is no aniyama at all. So you don't need any paribhashas. And pratyaya is only one type. Paraha, pratyaya is always added at the end. So essentially, the reason why I drew this diagram is I wanted to show this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's basically starting from 0 up to 4, all different nice pattern emerges out of this. So anyway, samapayamaha. So that's all that I wanted to discuss in today's class. There is a small doubt that somebody asked, I think based on the previous class. I can take it in 1 minute. The question was on yena vidhis tadantasya sutram of the previous class. And the question was, what type of sutram is this? Is this a paribhasha sutram? And the answer is, technically it is a samnya sutram. Why? Because if you look at the sutrartha, it says Visheshanam tadantasya samnya syat. So this is technically a samnya sutram. So diva uta has the word diva acting as the samnya for diva as well as sudiva. So because sudiva ityasya krute api saha eva vidhi bhavati, diva ityasya krute api saha eva vidhi bhavati, and diva acts as a representative of the class that consists of diva, sudiva, whatever, ati diva, mahadiva, and so on. So diva itself is the samnya for that entire class. So this is the samnya sutram. This was just purely for information. As I mentioned, I have also mentioned this in the previous class. The type of the sutras is completely irrelevant when it comes to the actual prakriya. That's all for today's class. Let's take a quick look at the homework. First question, Swashabdaihi Laghu Tippanim Likhata. Please do not copy sentences from the slide deck. Sadly, I have to write this because all the homeworks, most of the homeworks I see, slides are copied one after the other. So slides are not given for you to copy. You have to write it in your own words. The only thing you are allowed to copy is the meaning in the white background. That must be copied verbatim. Not even a single letter can be changed. But other than that, write in your own words. So do not copy sentences from the slide. स्वशब्दैहि लघुटिप्पणीं लिखत सर्वादेश अन्त्यादेश, very simple, आद्यादेश एकादेश मित आगमः, and एकवाक्येन उत्तरत. So आदेः परस्य तथा अनेकाल्शित सर्वस्य तयोर्मध्ये संघर्षे जाते कस्य बलीयस्त्वम्. So simple questions are there. Some are little tricky but not very tricky. Mostly others are so simple. So for example, luk shabdena vihitaha lopaha kasya sthane vidhiyate. Simple sutras. So this homework is actually very simple, will not take any time or will not take more time. So that's it. There is a question over here. Are you making PDF of sutras for downloading? The answer is no. There is no plan of making the PDF at the moment. After the course ends, I will make the PDF completely and then send it to you. The reason being that this is just a basic idea. Sutras can move around. So for example, in Vidheya Sthana Nirnayaha, Iko Guna Vriddhi was not there till last week. While I am preparing for the classes, I do some rearrangement of the sutras. So new sutras might get added, some sutras might get moved and so on. So when this entire sheet is ready towards the end of the course, I will make a PDF and send it to you. Till that point, there is no plan of doing any PDF. Any further questions? So समापयामः श्वः अस्मिन्नेव समये वर्गः भविष्यति. In tomorrow's class, so we have studied uddeshas, we have studied vidheyas. The goal for tomorrow's class is uddesha vidheya sambandha. How do they interact with each other? So I think that's the theme for tomorrow's class. Uddesha vidheya sambandha. Only 5 sutras. स्थानेन्तरतमः उरण्ड्रपरः यथा संख्यमनुदेशः समानां प्रत्ययलोपे प्रत्ययलक्षणं न लुमताङ्गस्य. 5 sutras will be studied tomorrow. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानाम् उपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.